and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven.
Lord, send your Spirit upon us as we meet, talk and discuss. We ask that all we do, dream and hope for becomes your plan for us.
As we listen tonight and make our decisions about our studies, may we remember our many gifts and choose wisely so that we can use these gifts in praise of God for his greater glory.
St. Marcelin Champagne, Mary, our good mother, and let us always remember, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay, I will now pass over to Mr. Miller.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Those people who are coming in, it's a typical Catholic show. All the spare seats are down the front, so please feel free to come up. I just want to say a couple of things tonight, and I'll be fairly brief. I'll let the other people do the talking. But firstly, we talk about education as a holistic process here at St Greg's, and it's about the teaching and learning during the day, yes, definitely. But we also look about the opportunities the boys can get, and there are so many of them. And last night I was down at the South Coast Public Speaking Competition, and as many of you would know, I offer Toastmasters to the boys, and I take a dozen or 14 boys once a term. They do 6 weeks on a Thursday night. We get to know each other and they get better at the public speaking. And last night down at the South Coast, one of the boys who'd been doing Toastmasters earlier in the year actually went on it and came third on the night. And it was his first foray into public speaking. And my point of that story is, here's a boy who's taken up an opportunity and he's done very well with it, and he's gained a lot of confidence. And when he got that third place last night, he went up about 10 feet tall after that one. There are many opportunities that your sons get here, and I would encourage you to encourage them to definitely take them up. We've got the Year 12 co-curricular night in a couple of weeks, and I know when I'm talking to that year group, they're going to be running around 80% of the boys taking up all the opportunities at the college. So I just pass that one on to you. The second one is that you're going to choose electives tonight. You'll choose 2. My suggestion is don't pick it out to be your favourite teacher, because it might not be the teacher next year. Don't go with your friends. Pick something you're actually interested in. Then looking ahead by 2 years. You might think it's going to take a long time, 2 years, but I can tell you at my age it goes very quickly. And in 2 years' time you're going to be sitting here again and you're going to be choosing your electives for Year 10 going into Year 11. And one of the things that's come up, especially this time with the electives, is that boys don't think it's that important in 9 and 10 to make sure they're getting various standards going into Year 11. There are usually prerequisites for courses, and I'm thinking here in maths in particular. We have 5.321, 1 being the lowest. If you're doing 5.1, there is no way you're going to be doing mathematics when you hit Year 11, because you just won't have the skill set to do it. So if you're in 5.3 or 5.2 now, you need to maintain that and stay in that level. And if you're looking at an A and a B in various other subjects, you need to maintain those levels if you want to choose particular subjects once you get to Year 11. People are usually not looking that far ahead, but I thought after some of the interviews I've done lately, we need to talk about that now, because it's about preparation for Year 11. We take for granted most boys will go through to Year 12. There'll be some who'll stop at the end of Year 10 or at the end of Year 11. They'll get apprenticeships, and that's absolutely fantastic for those boys. But those who want to go through to uni and do certain courses, they need to make sure they're doing the right thing now and working hard to make sure they maintain certain grades for it. You'll see something up here tonight. I've asked Mr. Spencer to show you that we did in boarding. We did a breakdown of reports, and we can have a look and see where they were here and how far they've gone this way. He'll show you something and he'll explain it to you. But as you know, I go through the reports myself, and I've had a look at grades, and I've sent out the usual letters of the very good ones, the ones that need improvement, and then the other ones who I've been working with. And I'll give you an example of one boy in Year 8 who I've been working with. His attendance rate wasn't great. He's been seeing me every Monday afternoon, And where he had an attendance rate of 50%, he has actually gone up to, I think it's about 80 or 90% at the moment, so he's travelling very well. But he also has the pleasure of seeing me every Monday afternoon. I go through all his exercise books for him and I make all the corrections. I've got a real thing about spelling at the moment. So I go through and do all these spelling mistakes for him. Then he has the pleasure of sitting there beside me and writing them out 5 times each. And then at the end of the hour, he can actually spell all those words. And then I've actually gone back and checked some of the words from the week before just to see we haven't forgotten them. And I know when he comes to doing the next report, he is going to improve out of sight, just from the fact that he is there every Monday afternoon with me. We're checking on what he's doing. I've improved his attendance rate, and I would see that as being successful. I'd ask you to go home and have a look at your son's report. Go back to the one from last year and then have a look at the semester one this time and see if there's been a change in that. Has there been an improvement or have we gone backwards? And the other thing I've been looking at closely are the class average marks, where I noticed one boy had a class average on the last report, he was behind by 10. This time he's gone behind by 30. So we've had a conversation about that because I wanted to understand what had actually happened in that course. So it's not a bad conversation to have with your sons and ask them to explain it. If it's about the fact that they don't understand work, they need to talk to the teachers about it, no argument there. But also they've got so many options to get help. The Monday afternoon up with me, Mrs Dean and the teachers who do Tuesday afternoon, and then we've got the Wednesday afternoon homework club where there are 3 or 4 teachers in there. There's hardly anyone in there with them. They get lonely, so they don't mind people turning up. And it's only around the exam time where you actually have to take a seat on the carpet. Any other time, they're there for you. And you need to take up those options, gentlemen. So have a think about that, please. But the message tonight, holistic education, get involved as much as you can. Second one is 2 subjects tonight. Don't pick your friend's subjects. Don't pick the teacher. Pick the thing you're interested in. Going into year 11, think about the subjects you're doing now. Maintain a healthy average and a healthy subject credit if you want to pick particular subjects once you get to year 11. And you've got those other options, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. You can always get help with the work if you need it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and now Mrs Keegan is going to come. She's the Director of Studies.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out tonight to support your sons in this process. My job tonight is twofold. I'm going to talk briefly about some of the changes to Stage 5, which is years 9 and 10, and Mr Miller alluded to the fact that some of those changes will impact now on Stage 6, and I'm also going to look at the elective process that the boys have been going through and that we'll finalise next week. So when your sons move into Year 9 next year, that makes up the first part of Stage 5. You'll notice on the screen that there are a number of subjects that they're studying this year that will be missing from that list. And those are the areas that mainly form our electives. So once the boys are in Year 9, they must study religious education, English, mathematics, science, Australian history and Australian geography, and PDHPE. And the former Board of Studies, now called NESA, outlines a number of particular hours that the boys must study during these next 2 years. As well as looking at the core subjects, we'll also look at the study of careers through our English program, our pastoral care program, and parts of our PDHPE program. And that will lead into Year 10, where Mrs Dean will take our careers advisor will take your sons through the process of work experience. We're very fortunate here at the college. A lot of schools don't have work experience anymore, but we've still been in a position to offer that, and it certainly is our plan to continue that as much as possible. For those boys who are not choosing a computing elective, your information technology skills will also be integrated across the subjects that you're studying in the curriculum. Some of you may have older children and they might have sat for the school certificate when they were in Year 10, but the school certificate in that form ceased to exist in 2011. Now, along with that change, the state government raised the school leaving age to 17. So the current requirements for students who complete Year 10, if you do complete Year 10 and you're not 17, you must either be in at least 25 hours a week work, you must be going on to full-time study in Year 11, or you must be going on to TAFE. Now, we'll deal with that more in 2 years' time when the boys are in Year 10, but it is important to keep that in mind when you're planning the next 2 years. So, NESA have replaced the school certificate with the ROSA, and the ROSA stands for the Record of School Achievement. With the ROSA, the Board of Studies were trying to include other skills along with academic skills. So the opportunity to include things like co-curricular involvement, leadership involvement, things such as debating and public speaking, music, etc. So the ROSA does allow a student to build up a CV alongside of their school results. To be eligible for a ROSA, you must have completed the pattern of study that I outlined before, and you must have completed all of the requirements that are set out in the assessment program, and you must also complete Year 10 to achieve a ROSA. So we occasionally have the odd student who doesn't complete Year 10, but they won't be eligible for a ROSA. A ROSA is designed primarily as a school leavers credential. So most of the cohort sitting in front of me will go all the way through to Year 12. So you will get your ROSA when you finish Year 12. And when you get your ROSA, it will have your Year 10 results, your Year 11 results, and your Year 12 results all in one place. If for some reason you decided to leave school at the end of Year 10 or Year 11, you would be eligible for your ROSA then, but it would contain only the results that you had completed. Leave that one out. I mentioned earlier that one of the requirements of getting a ROSA is that you must complete school-based assessment in all subjects. So what that school-based assessment will do is result in a grade from A to E, much in the same way as it does now, with the exception of mathematics where they break those grades up a little bit further. Now, one of the things that you may have been following in the media in the last couple of weeks is the requirement that NESA, the New South Wales Standards Authority, have brought in for a minimum Band 8 result in Year 9 NAPLAN. Now, students are required, if you want to sit for the higher school certificate and get the higher school certificate, you must get a Band 8 in NAPLAN in reading, writing and numeracy. Now, you don't have to get that in Year 9. Now, obviously, if you do get that in Year 9, that's really handy because you can tick that one off and go, yes, I've already done that. But NESA will provide opportunities for students each term when they're in Year 10, each term when they're in Year 11, and again each term when they're in Year 12, to sit for online tests, 45-minute online tests that will enable them to meet that standard. And certainly what we'll be doing over the next couple of years is making sure that we work very closely with those students who haven't met that criteria. It is also possible to sit for those tests once you leave school, but I'm not quite sure how realistic that one will be. I think only time will tell on that one. It's important to note, as I said, that there will be multiple opportunities for you to sit those tests, and each school will enter students and advise parents of when that testing will be taking place. So, for example, for 2018, there are 4 test windows during that time. The school obviously won't be able to make available that whole period of time, but we will work with students and with parents to let you know when we're doing that. I will be around at the end of the night as well if you have any questions, particularly about those changes, because I know a lot of parents are very concerned, but we will work very hard with you and with your sons to make sure that they're able to achieve those goals. So, on to the elective process. It's wonderful to work with Miss Keir and her team, and they have done some work in PC, preparing the students for the process of electives. They've looked at semester 1 results, they've reflected on their strengths and their areas for improvement, and they've had a chance to focus on their interests as well. Also, as part of the subject selection process, the subject handbook was published on the college website, on our Sky Blue system and our Central system. Our KLA coordinators also spoke to Year 8 the Friday before last, and they will be available to speak to you tonight as well if you have any specific questions about their subjects. So the actual process is that you will study 2 electives in years 9 and 10, but we ask you to put down 4 preferences just in case there are some clashes or full classes or classes don't run. It is really important that you put your subjects in, excuse me, in your order of preference. So whichever subject you really want to do first, please make sure that you put that first. I've been working on this process with Mr. Graham over the last few years, and he has all sorts of wonderful statistics that show the vast majority of our boys get their first preference. A lot of our boys also get their second preference as well, so I've heard a little bit of gossip out there today that that's not the case, but we work very hard to make it work for most of our students. If we do need to move to the 3rd or 4th preference, we will consult with you. So we'll communicate with you in writing, but we'll also speak to your son about those changes, just in case you've changed your mind. As I mentioned, sometimes there are reasons why your son may not get his first or second elective. It may be that there are insufficient numbers to run the class if there's not sufficient interest. There may be subjects clashing on the same line, so the vast majority of students want to do things on a different line, or we may have too many applications. So some of our subjects such as photography, timber and engineering are obviously limited by the amount of equipment and room that we have in the workshop. It's really important that you give this process very careful thought, because these are the electives you must study for the 2 years. Once Year 9 has begun, there will be no changes. So it's important that you get it right at this stage. Mr. Miller also mentioned already the importance of your gifts and your interests and doing something that you enjoy. Year 9 is a really good opportunity to do that. There are very few subjects that you need to study in Year 9 that are prerequisites for Year 11. Probably the one exception is a language. If you would like to study a language at a higher level in Year 11, you need to study that language in Stage 5. So whether that's Italian that you're going to elect to do here at school, or whether you're going to elect to do a language through distance education or Saturday school. But that is really the only exception. You don't, for example, need to do commerce to do economics in Year 11 and 12. So what should you be doing? Well, looking at the handbook is a really good place to start. Talk to your teachers. You know, if you are particularly interested in a subject like art, speak to your art teacher. If you like music, speak to your music teachers. Also, you could get some really valuable advice from some of our current Year 9 and 10 students. As I said, important to discuss your choices with your parents as well. The Board of Studies or NESA website also has some information that might be helpful, but it's really important that you make your own choice. There are some good reasons not to choose subjects with your friends, right? One of them is because we often have multiple classes. So, for example, in our current Year 9 group, we have 3 timber classes and we have 3 PTHPE, 3 PASS classes. So if you'd chosen one of those subjects to be with your friend, you might find that he's actually in another class. So it's really important to be your own man. I've mentioned the electives as well. Just one thing that I would like to reiterate to, and Mr. Miller did allude to this, if you are considering going on to Year 11 and 12, So that will be 2020 for Year 11, gentlemen. Your performance over the next 2 years is really important, and it will be taken into account when we look at access to higher subject levels. So courses such as Advanced English, Mathematics, Physics, Chemistry, Economics and Software Design. They're all very difficult courses, and we need you to demonstrate a level of commitment and ability in Stage 5 to allow you access into Stage 6. Now, I actually have the date wrong on this, so my apologies. On your form it says Wednesday, so we'll stick with Wednesday, please. My apologies. And if those forms can be returned to Miss Keir, and then we will advise you early in Term 4 what electives you have. So the electives that we'll be offering next year, and I know it's probably very difficult to read. Sorry. I thought I was going to make it through without coughing. We'll be offering agriculture, and Mr. Harrison is here tonight to speak about that. Commerce, Miss Martin is here to speak about that. Drama, graphics, Italian, information software and technology. In the industrial technology, we'll be offering timber, metals, electronics and engineering. We had a new course this year in Year 9, which is International Studies, and that's been very popular. Music, photography and digital media, physical activity and sports studies, and visual arts. So all of those subjects will be on offer for 2018. I will be around at the end of the evening if anyone has any questions. I know it's a lot to take in, but once again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm very grateful, and I'm going to hand over to Mr. Spencer, actually.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening, boys. Just a brief look at boarding again. Many of you have heard me before, so I just thought I'd share with you tonight some brief things about boarding. Why would you look at it? One of the things I looked at today, I did some costing again and worked out that really it's about a $70 a day investment on top of the boys' current tuition. When you look at it in that light, it's certainly a value for money, but it's also obviously not affordable to everyone. But I just thought we'd look at that and break it down for you as to what you get for that. So an investment in your sons. Firstly, their spiritual well-being. It's certainly catered for over there. It's the Boarders' Mass on a Sunday, which everyone's welcome to come to, is certainly a part of that. We do singing practice on Thursday afternoons, and we have prayer in the boarding houses as well. And the boys' physical well-being. Afternoon sport and various activities. They've got the run of the place of an afternoon to use. Summer they love the pool, basketball courts, the ovals, the gym, all that sort of stuff. It's a pretty good place to be for an hour or so after school before you get into study. Their social well-being, living in a community, and that sense of mateship, and I put that up there because if you ask the boys, that's the most important thing to them in terms of what they get out of it. And I mean that especially when I talk about weekly boys that join, often reluctantly sort of think they don't know much about the boarding community, or it seems like something they'd never go near, but when they come and actually get to know it, most of them end up absolutely loving it and leave here in tears at the end of Year 12 and have mates for life all around country New South Wales. So enough can't be said about that as well. And of course the boys' academic potential. Supervised study available every night, and there's tutoring there as well. I think in the world we're living in with boys that are, well, everyone facing increased challenges, increased pressures, mental health certainly a big issue for us, and that's everywhere. And I think what we do in boarding and what we try and do for these boys is just provides another thing. It's a home away from home, yes, and nothing can replicate necessarily what's in your homes, but certainly the busyness of our lives and mum and dad's working both jobs, things like that, I think it is becoming a thing that people are potentially looking back to as an option where they know your son's in a safe, secure environment, able to get all their study done, have that support there, come home on a weekend or on a Thursday night and spend quality time with family. So it is a good option. Mr. Miller talked about tracking boys academically, something we're doing a lot of now. And I could put anything up here and I could certainly play with figures and make it look wonderful and everything else, but There's positives and negatives up there. That's our current Year 9 boarding cohort. And the top section there is their results from Year 7. And then the bottom section is their current reports of Semester 1 in Year 9. You'll see a lot of yellow there, a lot of C grades. So they're all pretty much passing everything. What you might notice from Year 7 to Year 9 there's a lot more green in there. There are 5 more boys that have joined that cohort, which has helped. But the Bs have gone, for instance, from 18 through to 35. So we are doing some things quite well. I'd suggest if you look in the middle column there is maths, which you can see was mainly Cs in Year 7. There was 2 Bs, and we've got it there. There's a lot more Bs there. A couple of Ds have crept in as well. The concerning thing I look at in looking at this was the science. And we've obviously got a problem with science, and we've got to get around these boys and support them. So we'll look at what we provide in terms of science tutoring for the boys in boarding and pull those boys out and work with them to try and get their marks up in science. So it looks at the positives certainly, but it also looks at what we need to keep working on to improve the offering for these boys and what we're providing for them in the boarding house. So if you considered it, if you're thinking about it at all, if you'd like to take a look over there one day, if you'd like to chat at the end of tonight, very happy to be here and talk to any of you about those options. We can certainly do a trial and the boys can give it a go. I'm interested to hear any questions, comments, thoughts about what you might be thinking about boarding if that's a consideration for you. Thank you.
So I'm just going to do a quick little chat about Year 8 and what we've been doing in pastoral care this year. So this year the motto for Year 8, it's quite a long one, respect, resilience and the choices that we make. So the aim is to encourage the boys to think about firstly the way that they treat each other and other people, to look at developing strategies in terms of their resilience and encouraging them to make positive decisions in all facets of their life. So at home, in the classroom, in the yard, at school, on the sporting field and in their community as well. So in the pastoral care program this year, these are some of the things that we have been looking at. So the very start of the year, they looked back at their Year 7 reports and they did some goal setting, basically reflecting upon and evaluating how they went last year and how they can change to do differently this year. One of the things that we look at is study skills, so leading up especially towards the end of year exams, they'll be doing extra study skills sessions in their pastoral care lessons as well. And that helps with their organisation too, and that is something that the homeroom team is really good at helping the boys with their organisation. So going through their diaries, making sure that they're filling in their homework and that they're completing their homework as well. They've had some opportunities for leadership and teamwork. So the boys might have mentioned earlier last term we went to Stanwell Tops and they had their activities day out there, and that basically is encouraging them to work in a team and also getting them to show some leadership skills in some of the activities that they did there. So some of the boys might not have been able to participate because they might have been injured, but there were some boys who were really positive in the way that they encouraged the other boys who might have been struggling with some of particularly the height activities. We looked at cyber safety earlier in the term, I think term 1, where Mr. Perner came in and actually went through safe habits for using digital technologies. So went through some of the things to do with using Facebook, other social media sites, their cameras in general on their phones, how they can be tracked by their location, things like taking photos of themselves in their school uniforms and how people can track them through that as well. So, and in that we kind of linked back to that idea of how we treat other people and things like that, because we spoke about using that sort of social media appropriately as well. That also links into the bullying and resilience part. So there has been a number of things that we've done this year to assist with that. So the counsellor the college counsellor has come in. She has done a session with the boys to do with ways that they interact with each other, and also ways that they can deal with interactions that they might not deem to be positive. We've also looked at this idea of harassment and peer pressure. We've had, and this goes back to the bullying as well, a couple of different groups come in to present to Year 8. So we had the team from Brainstorms, the team from Zeal Theatre who present Stones, and they look at, I guess, a more interesting way through their presentations. They have acts and skits and things like that that the boys can interact with in that way as well, and get across some of those ideas in a different way. The mums might be aware that we looked at manners and etiquette. So we had our mums and sons night earlier in the term. The boys did a couple of PC lessons where we looked at etiquette and their manners, and they got to demonstrate that at the etiquette evening. We also look at making the right choices through a number of things that we do. So it might be conversations that we have with them, but also particularly the Zeal Theatre Company, when they present Stones, that is a presentation that really focuses on the choices we make and the consequences of those choices. So things that they might think might not be that big a deal at the time, but how that can escalate quite quickly. So just some important dates for Year 8. So obviously what's been happening lately, so we've had the Mums and Sons Etiquette Evening, so there was all the preparation lead up to that. And obviously tonight we have the Subject Selection Evening, and as Mrs. Keegan spoke about before, we had some PC lessons where we spoke about that as well. So they did a PC lesson in their homerooms with their homeroom teachers, where they discussed things like their strengths, ways that they prefer to work, those sorts of things. And then they also, again, had the KLA coordinators come in and present to them about this, the details of the selections that they could be making. And just a couple of dates that are coming up. So obviously you might be aware, hopefully you are, that next Monday is the college photo day. But if I could remind you that they do need to be in full winter uniform, and if they do need a haircut, now might be a good time to sort that out. We have the Mass of the Feast of St. Gregory, which is coming up on the 1st of September. And there is also the Italian excursion. Not sure if the boys have been notified of that yet, but that is coming up, and that is on the 11th of September. And lastly, the co-curricular evening, which is actually next term, but if you want to put that in your calendar, the date for that is the 6th of November. Just before I hand back over to Mr. Miller, what I would, just a couple of things I would like to remind. Although it's not listed on the sheet in front of you, drama is an option for an elective for next year. So if you're looking at the sheet going, oh my goodness, drama's not on there, it is an elective. So if you would like to pick drama, please just add it to the bottom and make sure you select that as the preference that you would like to select it for. And I would just like to really reiterate the fact that this is a subject that you are going to be doing for the next 2 years. So it is really important, guys, that you pick subjects that you like, that you have a genuine interest in and a talent for. So something that you're good at, okay? Because if you like it and you're good at it, you're more likely to do well in it over those 2 years and not want to change partway through, which, as we discussed, isn't possible. Okay, so with that, I'll hand back to Mr. Miller.
Gentlemen, I must congratulate you. When Miss said about the photos next Monday, I thought it's very important. You know about the haircut rules and all that sort of thing, but I was just looking at you as you came in, and I thought you were so well dressed, coats buttoned up, looked fantastic. So congratulations to the parents, because I know you're behind it as well, so thank you very much for that support. Also, you would have noticed when you drove in tonight, you most probably didn't see it in the dark, but you might have realised you veered off a bit coming in the new branch of the road as you go out. It's a bit of a spur going around there. They tell me that road will still be ready for December. I'll see it to believe it. but they're still working along those timelines anyway, so that's where we're up to with that one. Mr Graham, if you just throw some light down the back, please. I just want to say thank you to the staff for coming in tonight. Ms Keir, Ms Keegan, they've organised tonight, so I'm very appreciative of that. But as you can see, Mr Graham, he'll turn the lights on for us. Mr Vetrano's here as well. But we've also got our subject coordinators down the back, and from who I can see, we've got Mr Harrison there with the agriculture, Mr Malasilia with the music, Ms Ferencz with the art, Mr Bingham with the PE. I think Mr Malone's down the back as well for music, Mr O'Flynn with the TAS, Miss Martin with Hissy, and Miss Curry with the Italian. So I just want to say thank you to them for coming along tonight as well. On the way out, I've been playing with the air conditioning and the temperature on it. I actually had both on when you walked in, and I've turned off the front one. So you can just give me some feedback on the way out, whether it's still too hot in here for you or I've still got to drop the temperatures back. But once again, thanks very much for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. And they're there for you. Thanks very much.